Welcome to the Running Tales podcast. My name's Craig Lewis, and along with my wife Michelle, I use this pod to talk to everyday runners, race walkers and wheelchair racers who have extraordinary stories or have achieved incredible things. This week I spoke to Erik Heine, whose story is intrinsically linked to that of his son Stephen. Stephen was born in 2006 and at 18 months old was diagnosed with a rare disorder affecting all areas of his development. But when Stephen found he had a love of being pushed in his wheelchair, he and Erik, already a keen runner, decided that nothing was going to stop them. The pair have achieved some incredible things together, including becoming part of a national movement in America, which is where they live, helping people with disabilities take part in running events. I found their story truly inspiring and I really enjoyed talking to Erik about it, and I hope that you do too. I started by asking him about the incredible organisation that he's part of, Team Hoyt Oklahoma.
Team Hoyt Oklahoma is one of 11 regional groups across North America that is an offshoot of the original Team Hoyt. The original Team Hoyt was Dick and Rick Hoyt. Dick passed away in March of 2021, and Rick does not compete very much anymore. And they were a father-son duo who participated in races everywhere from 5K to marathons to Ironman triathlons, and even ran across the United States one summer. Rick was born with cerebral palsy, and Dick and his wife did not want to lock him away, as the doctors suggested. This was in the 1960s. And so they raised him just like anyone else, and he went to high school and eventually earned a bachelor's degree in special education from Boston College. So Team Hoyt Oklahoma is the only group here in Oklahoma that is affiliated, with Team Hoyt. And my wife and I had been talking about doing something like this for some time. We had friends out in Delaware who started a group, not Team Hoyt affiliated, but a group that, a nonprofit that would purchase running wheelchairs and then be able to use them for races to allow disabled runners to participate. And so I qualified for the 2018 Boston Marathon, and my wife and I scheduled our trip to the expo around hearing Dick and Rick talk. And we got there and we looked around the room and we saw people wearing Team Hoyt San Diego gear and Team Hoyt Virginia Beach. And we kind of looked at each other and thought, oh, this is a thing. Okay, well, we're going to have about 30 seconds afterwards with Dick, so we better figure out how to pitch this. And so we did. We talked to him for just a brief second and eventually got in touch with someone who could help us figure things out. And about a month and a half later, we were approved to be a new Team Hoyt chapter.
And the person you've not mentioned so far who's absolutely integral to all this is your son, Stephen, isn't it?
Yes. So Stephen is disabled. He was born with a genetic condition called Rubinstein-Taybi syndrome. And part of that is low muscle tone and difficulty motor planning. So while Stephen can walk, he's ambulatory, he cannot run. He can run maybe 20 yards before he just can't keep going. And so if you were to look at his legs are just sort of flat. There's just almost no muscle there at all. And so back in 2014, we talked to some folks here in Oklahoma City who actually had a wheelchair that was designed kind of to do what the running wheelchairs do that we have. It was an old modified regular wheelchair. And they saw us and said, well, would he like to run in this sometime? And so our first run together was in December of 2014. And he enjoyed it so much that we looked into purchasing sort of a larger jogging stroller for him, because he was only, about 8 at the time. Eventually he outgrew that and we had to upgrade and get the larger wheelchair that we have now. But it is absolutely his favorite thing. He loves going running with me, especially in the summer, because he doesn't have to go to school, so we can go more than just on the weekends. But it's his favorite thing. He loves races because it's somewhere new, and he loves the crowds cheering and clapping. And it's we started Team Hoyt Oklahoma because we wanted to be able to share the same sort of joy that Stephen has with everyone else in the community.
And it must have been a massive kind of inspiration for both you and for Stephen to come across Team Hoyt.
Yes, I'd heard about it a long time ago and never really thought about it. In fact, apparently my dad, he told me this a few years ago, when he was giving presentations, he would often reference them, never knowing, that one day I would have a disabled child and would end up meeting Dick and Rick. And, they were these huge celebrities in the Boston area, right? There would be these big functions, and, you'd get athletes from the Patriots and the Celtics and the Bruins and the Red Sox, and everyone would stop and look at them when they would enter the room. I mean, it was fantastic. But yes, knowing their story and just knowing that it was possible to do something like this, they were the ones who broke down all the barriers and made it a thing that we could do. And, at the beginning, we still would have to fight with race directors and things like that. But at this point now, we know pretty much everyone in the area who is in charge of races, and our needs are pretty easily met and very easily accommodated.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. I know we have some races over here in England which are extremely wheelchair friendly, and we have others where just race directors will kind of go, oh, it's just not going to work, and I've got no idea how to make it work. But it sounds like, at least in where you are in Boston, that people have come to some degree to grips with it.
Yeah, it's we have to be selective in the races that we choose. Obviously we can't do trail races or things like that. It's just not particularly feasible. And we have to pick races that are mostly on streets as opposed to, just sort of smaller paths, especially those that are out and back, because the wheelchair itself would pretty much take up an entire side of a two-way path. And so it's just not safe to have that little space. So again, we have to be careful about the races that we choose, but we tend to do these same races year after year. And so again, that affords us familiarity both to the race director and to the course. So all of our athletes, both our disabled athletes and our athletes who push the wheelchairs, are familiar with the courses, and they know what to expect. And, basically the biggest accommodation that we need is just a 1 minute head start. So that way we get out of the way before the masses get going, because it's so much easier for them to go around us than it is for us to try and weave through traffic. A lot of times you'll hear a race director say, well, strollers start at the back.
Yeah.
This isn't a stroller. This is a wheelchair. Right. And this is not something that's limited to children. This is for adults. Right. These chairs hold about 225 pounds. So, this isn't just something that's designed for kids to participate. This is for anyone who's disabled to be able to participate. And you wouldn't look at a 35-year-old and say, well, that's a stroller.
No.
Right. So, it's a wheelchair. And so fighting that battle at the beginning was a little bit of a challenge too, just to get people to understand, no, it's not a stroller. This is not a 2-year-old. This is someone who's, in middle school.
Yeah.
Right? This is a wheelchair. This is something that he needs to be able to participate in this activity.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And also, I suppose you or whoever is doing the pushing part of this must be pretty fit, not only to do the running, but to push something along like that.
Well, we encourage anyone who wants to participate to be able to do it. And we have people that can run a sub 25K pushing a wheelchair. We have people that take 45 minutes pushing a wheelchair. Right. It's not about time. It's not about speed. It's about enjoying the activity and enjoying the time together. Steven likes to go fast. So therefore I have to be in shape.
And how much fun is it downhill? You must get out of control sometimes.
Well, it depends on how steep the downhill is. Most of the time, the grade isn't so bad, but there are two hills in particular that I can think of that are just devastating, and they're in two separate races. And one of them is in the last 2 miles of the Oklahoma City half and full marathon. And when we ran it this past fall, I guess this past spring, it was the sort of thing where either you have to pull back really hard on the chair and just kind of go down slowly, or let it rip and scream to get out of the way. Yeah. And so I this time I chose to let it rip, and just about took out 3 people. But I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, chair on the left, out of the way, out of the way. And the people who aren't moving are the people who have headphones on.
Yeah, I know that's a big problem. We have a lady who does the local park run here, and she will quite often, particularly on the slightly downhill bits, be screaming and shouting for people to get out of the way, because and if they've got headphones on, they won't. And sometimes they just sort of think, well, maybe like a runner would be able to just easily go around. Well, she doesn't quite move in the same way.
Exactly. Yeah. It's when you've got 160 pounds going downhill, gravity and physics take over, and there's not a lot of room to move.
Yeah, definitely. You hinted at it just then, but what sort of races do you do in terms of distance and so on?
Well, Stephen and I have done 5 half marathons together and a 25K. We've done lots of 5 and 10Ks, of course, because those are, the most frequent and the most common sort of races around here. Racing a half marathon takes a pretty big effort, just because, you're not using your arms to run, you're using your arms to push. So all you're using to run is basically from the hips down. And so that pretty much wipes me out for about a week afterwards when I'm racing that. But in April next year, Stephen and I are going to run our first marathon together.
Oh, incredible. Where's that going to be?
That's going to be here in Oklahoma City. So we're going to use it as sort of a test run to see where things are at, because then in 2024, we're going to try and qualify for Boston, because by then he'll be 18.
Right. I mean, if I've got this right, Boston, you have to be pretty quick to qualify for anyway. Does that same sort of criteria apply for you and Stephen?
Yes, it does.
Wow.
I have to run my qualifying time for my age group.
Right, which is, for those who don't know?
Let's see.
I know it's pretty quick.
I'll be 45 to 49, so I think it's like 3:15 is the minimum.
Wow. I mean,
3:20, I forget. But
yeah, well, either of those are pretty quick for people generally, let alone with propelling Stephen along too. So, good luck with that. That would be quite an achievement.
Well, thank you. I don't run without the wheelchair anymore. I either I'm pushing him or I'm pushing weights, because he's the reason that I do this now. It started with me wanting to run and be healthy and be fit, and because he enjoys it so much, all of my training now is geared towards being able to push him as far as I can, as fast as I can. Yeah. And so, just running by myself, there's no motivation in it anymore. I just can't make myself do it. But when I'm with him, I can be having a bad day and still turn a 6-miler into a 10-miler, because he wants to be out there and he wants to keep going. And it's a lot easier for me to find the motivation than when I'm by myself. And, we've all experienced this, where we've been out on a bad run and just went, forget it, I'll just turn around and go home. No, that's not really a choice. He knows how far we're going to go. And if we turn around at the wrong spot, he'll actually get mad at me and start yelling.
Oh, wow. And so it sounds like his love of it that he found, he's absolutely maintained.
Yes. Can I tell my favorite Stephen story about running?
Yes, please. Yeah.
So we were out, and I was going up a hill, and Stephen is nonverbal. He's non-speaking. So he uses an app on his iPad to talk. And so we were going up a hill, and so he types out the word faster and then hits, talk, and, it says faster. And I said, well, Stephen, come on, I'm going up a hill. All right, just calm down. And so he cleared it out and in all caps types out faster. And I said, all right, fine, I'll go faster. And I picked up the pace a bit, and he clapped a little, and so he knew exactly what he wanted. And boy, did he not want to go slow, and did not care that I was going up.
Is it fair to say that Stephen doesn't always think about you?
Oh, no, he's not worried about me at all. I mean, in the running community, he's the star, not me. I'm just the dude behind the chair. Everyone wants to see Stephen, and it's like, oh yeah, and that other guy that pushes him, whatever.
Yeah, well, I think that's quite right. That's definitely how it should be.
Absolutely, yeah.
How old is Stephen now?
Stephen is 15. He's just started high school this year, so ninth grade.
Oh, fantastic! And I kind of don't mean this question as sort of having a dark lining to it, but I'm thinking Stephen's probably obviously as he's getting older, he's probably getting bigger and heavier as well. At the same time as you will naturally be getting older as well. I mean, is there thoughts that cross your mind about how long can I continue doing this, or will it need somebody else to do this down the line when Stephen's, say, 45 himself and still fancies doing this?
It's an interesting question. One of the things that it makes me focus on is trying to be as fit and healthy as I can be. Yeah. And the last couple of years have been a struggle for everyone, of course. So I'm trying to get back to my best fitness right now. But it's the sort of thing where if I can do it, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Stephen does have a younger brother who's 6 and who loves running and wants to one day push him in the chair, and so as I get older, he may want to start doing that a little bit, and that would be fine. Brothers are cool, but as long as I can do it, I will. Yeah. And if that means that I'm 75 and he's 45 and it takes us 50 minutes to finish a 5K, that's just fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you mentioned that earlier, and that's a really good point, isn't it? Because it's not always about he might have to calm down on the faster messages, but as long as you can still do it, that's the most important thing, isn't it?
Yes, and he'll understand. He'll understand that Dad is not nearly as young as he once was.
Absolutely. Well, it sounds like you're still, if you're still looking at that sort of 3:15, 3:20 qualifying time while pushing Stephen, I think you're still doing pretty well at the moment. Tell me a little bit more about what you do as part of Team Hoyt now to help presumably other people in a similar situation.
Absolutely. So we, as a nonprofit, we get to raise funds. And so we are 100% based on just general fundraising. Whether that's through grants, whether that's through donations, whether that's through sponsorships. Nobody takes a salary. This is all volunteer work. Both my wife and I and our board of directors, no one gets paid for it. And so all of our money then goes back into all of our needs and our services. And so those include purchasing wheelchairs. That includes paying for all of our race entry fees for all of our athletes. So not just our disabled athletes, but our pushing athletes as well. We never want our disabled families to have money and finances as a barrier to be able to participate. All we ask for them is to just show up to the race, and we take care of the rest. We provide the pushing athletes, we provide the race entry fees, because with so many families with disabled children, finances are oftentimes very tight. And so we don't want that to be the barrier. Likewise, with our assistant athletes, with our runners who push the wheelchairs, they're giving their time and they're giving their effort, and we don't want them to have to pay out of pocket either. And so they're doing something for someone else, and we want to be able to do that for them and pay their race entry fee. So, nobody pays anything other than, our assistant athletes give us $25 and do a background check, and they get a race top, and that's it. That's all they ever have to pay. So, again, it's the financial barrier and the incentive to want to participate that we try and eliminate. I'm the one who's in charge of maintenance of all the chairs. So on the day before races, I'll go pick them up out of storage and check the tires and do all the cleaning and make sure everything looks good for the day. You'd think this is like an actual job. It's not. This is like my third side job. So, we do things like that. We try and do about 8 races per season. So anywhere from 6 to 8. So here in the summer in Oklahoma, there's not a lot going on in June, July, August, just because it's so hot. And some of our athletes don't do well in the heat or in the sun. Stephen, for example, doesn't actually sweat. And so for him to be outside in 90 plus degree temperatures, or I guess, 30 plus degrees Celsius for any sort of extended period of time is actually kind of dangerous for him.
Because he can't regulate his own body temperature.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And so, we have other athletes that have, needs based on the weather, based on cold, based on heat. So we just don't have races in June, July, August, just because it is so warm here. We actually had a stretch where I think we hit 42 degrees Celsius a couple days in a row. I know you guys had a pretty warm summer. But yeah, I think we had about a week straight of 40 plus degree temperatures here.
Gosh, we had a couple of days, and that's kind of enough for the country to grind to a halt.
Oh yeah. We had, I guess, as many days above 100 degrees Fahrenheit here as we had in the last 6 years combined.
Oh, wow,
so
that's
we had a very warm summer.
Yeah, I spoke to a chap called Carl Wright, who was a runner in Canada recently, and he's also a bit of an environmentalist and does something called the Monarch Ultra, and he was telling me about how it's just getting so extreme with the temperatures and so on at the moment, and the differences that make.
Yeah, it's a challenge, but we work through it, and in the summer, Stephen and I try and get out early, about an hour after dawn, and do what we as much as we can do, and then get back home.
It definitely sounds like absolutely superb charity doing some brilliant work for people. Just basically let everyone know how they can find out about Team Hoyt and how they can give money to it if they want to. Absolutely.
You can find us on the web at teamhoytok.com. So TEAMHOYTOK.com. You can also find us on Facebook. We have a very easy page to find there, Team Hoyt Oklahoma. We're not on the Instagram, and we're not on the Twitter. It's just too many things to deal with. But we do have a donation page on teamhoytok.com. You can also contact us, send us email, teamhoytok@gmail.com. You can send us email if you want to talk about other ways that you can get involved. You can go to the original Team Hoyt page, which is just teamhoyt.com, and that has links to all of the groups across North America. So there's a number of ways that you can learn about Dick and Rick. You can learn about us specifically in Oklahoma. You can learn about other chapters across North America as well.
Brilliant. Oh, that's fantastic. I'll make sure those details are sort of in the show notes for anyone who's interested in having a look, learning a bit more, and donating some money as well. Just a thought that's popped into my head there. Is Team Hoyt currently purely North America based, or do you know if there's any plans to widen it out across the pond, as it were?
Right. It's only based in North America right now. I don't know what plans are, if there's any plans on expanding either to Europe or additional North American groups. I just don't know. Since Dick passed, his sons are now running Team Hoyt, the charity. And so they've been in transition now for just about a year. So I'm not exactly sure how they're planning on doing things in the future. I do know there are a handful of duo runners. I know there was a pair in Ireland that ran a lot, but nothing specifically codified.
I mean, I'd love to see something like that happen over here as well, but maybe it's a matter of time. Erik, I did want to touch a little bit on you and your running career. I mean, you've obviously mentioned earlier that you've run Boston at least, and if you're running 3:15, 3:20, or hoping to run that now, I'm guessing you've run some pretty good times in the past on your own.
Yeah, it's nothing special, I ran track and cross country as a high school student and ran the 800, and so cross country was more of a challenge for me because as an 800 runner, that's 6 times longer.
Yeah.
And then graduating from high school, there people would run 5 and 10Ks, and I would think, who in their right mind would run a 10K? That's insane. Here's a guy running 2 laps around the track. Why would you do 25? That makes no sense. And so once I got to college, I sort of fell off the running train for a long time. As I was working on my doctoral dissertation, I got back into it and started running again a bit. And then after Stephen was born, I really tried to make sure that I was in better health and in better shape. Because he needs both myself and my wife around as long as we can. And, in terms of times, I don't even know what my best times are by myself, just because it's so unimportant to me anymore. The only best times I can tell you is my Boston qualifying time was 3:11. And I did a 12-hour race on a 1-mile loop, and I covered 71.85 miles.
Wow. That's a lot. Good effort.
Anything else?
People tell me stories about ultras. It always blows my mind because I've done a couple of marathons and that was plenty far enough for me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And like I said, this was on a loop that was just a shade under a mile. And so just 12 hours going around and around and around. And it wasn't flat. It was probably 50 feet of up and down every loop.
So for you, anyone who runs around a 1-mile loop for 12 hours must quite like running. What is it that got you into running and maintains your love of it? I mean, obviously it's a lot to do with Stephen now, but I think you must still quite like the idea of just running anyway.
Oh, yeah. I ran a lot as a kid. I played football, soccer. And so, of course, you need to run a lot and be in good shape to do that. And it was just something that I always did without thinking about it. It was just fun. And it was never a burden or a chore. And that just sort of became part of who I was. And now it's definitely part of who I am. Like so many of us, I cannot imagine not having that as part of my life, not having that outlet, that time that we get to spend, as whether it's as mental health work, whether it's as self-care, whether it's as just time alone and getting away from the day, getting away from the job, whatever that is. That's the sort of thing that I have to have and is just so much part of both my life and my identity at this point.
Fantastic. And what would you say to anybody else who sort of thinks, I might quite like to get into running, but I'm a bit nervous about it. I'm worried that I won't get very far or that it won't be for me.
Okay, 2 things I can say. Number one, the slogan of all of the Team Hoyt chapters is yes, you can. So yes, you can do that. Yes, you can be a part of that community. Yes, you can be embraced by that community. So, even if you're thinking about it, if you don't feel like you're in good enough shape, yes, you can. You can do this. The other thing is that I would recommend finding a group on Twitter called Running Punks. And
I was going to ask you about Running Punks. I keep seeing Running Punks everywhere on Twitter, and I must admit I don't really know what it is, but I do know that at least a couple of previous Running Tales guests are Running Punks. So yeah, I'm intrigued to learn more about them.
Okay, so Running Punks is the greatest free online running group that there is. It costs nothing. If you want to participate, great. You take a selfie after your run and tag Running Punks. And what we do is we run and we listen to music and we talk about music. And there are a lot of people that are in bands. There are a lot of people that are involved in music in some way. I'm actually a university music professor, so I come at it from a slightly different angle, but I still like a lot of loud music. um, but basically what it is it's an extremely supportive community where you can run however far you want, however fast you want, and you will be embraced and you will be supported and you will be cheered on. And it's a thing that seems to be growing quite significantly, which is great. I came into it a little over a year ago, just again through seeing the tags on Twitter, and they have absolutely embraced Stephen and I. And in fact, Stephen even has his own nickname. He is Wheelie Punk, right? He's in the wheelchair. So
Brilliant.
yeah, and so it's just a collection of some of the most thoughtful, most interesting people with a fair amount of swearing.
It kind of sums up runners generally.
Yes, yes.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's really good. You can do it, and then when you do, find some great people to do it with.
Yep. And virtual is great. There are a few in-group meetings. I know there's a lot of running punks that are in Cardiff. So they do Sunday morning runs together, and it's not about the pace, it's not about the distance, it's just about going out for a run and enjoying the community.
Erik, that's fantastic. Thank you so much for your time and for joining us on Running Tales today, and for telling us all about Team Hoyt and Team Hoyt Oklahoma. I'd recommend everybody goes and finds out a little bit more about those things.
Thank you so much for having me, Craig.